back off. Hello, hi. I'm Kanchan,
Hi, Kanchan.
and nice to meet you, Taranjeet, Kanti, and everyone here, Murari and Meera. I am not sure, but yeah, okay. So I'll just turn off my camera and let's begin. So yesterday, I think Miss Taranjeet had stopped at part two, page 35, private victory. So I'm going to start with habit one, which is be proactive, principles of personal vision. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. A saying by Henry David Thoreau. As you read this book, try to stand apart from yourself. Try to project your consciousness upward into a corner of the room and see yourself in your mind's eye, reading. Can you look at yourself almost as though you were someone else? Now try something else. Think about the mood you are now in. Can you identify it? What are you feeling? How would you describe your present mental state? Now think for a minute about how your mind is working. Is it quick and alert? Do you sense that you are torn between doing this mental exercise and evaluating the point to be made out of it? Your ability to do what you just did is uniquely human. Animals do not possess this ability. We call it self awareness or the ability to think about your very thought process. This is the reason why man has dominion over all things in the world and why he can make significant advances from generation to generation. Should I explain anywhere here or continue?
Uh, just finish one paragraph and then explain, Kanchan.
Okay, all right. So let's finish this
Kanchan,
section.
can you be a bit louder? Your voice is not coming through.
Okay, sure. This is why we can evaluate and learn from others' experiences as well as our own. This is also why we can make and break our habits. We are not our feelings. We are not our moods. We are not even our thoughts. The very fact that we can think about these things separates us from them and from the animal world. Self awareness enables us to stand apart and examine even the way we see ourselves. Our paradigm, the most important the most important fundamental paradigm of effectiveness. It affects not only our attitudes and behaviors, but also how we see other people. It becomes our map of the basic nature of mankind. In fact, until we take how we see ourselves and how we see others into account, we will be unable to understand how others see and feel about themselves and their world. Unaware, we will be unable to understand how others see and feel about themselves and their world. Unaware, we will project our intentions on their behavior and call ourselves objective. We'll project our intentions on their behavior and call ourselves objective. This significantly limits our personal potential and our ability to relate to others as well. But because of the unique human capacity of self awareness, we can examine our paradigms to determine whether they are reality or principle based or if they are a function of conditioning and conditions. Maybe I will stop here and just go over what we read. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, please, your comfort. Go right ahead.
So in this section, we are talking about as humans our ability to be self-aware of ourselves as a being, what our thoughts are, and how to project those thoughts onto others. And without this self-awareness, it is very difficult, first of all, to understand ourselves, what we want from life, and also what others uh, how others behave, how others react. So we think that we are analyzing their behavior very objectively, but that is not true. Unless we are aware of our own thoughts and distinguish ourselves in that sense, it is not possible to, first of all, set ourselves aside from the animal world and also to understand how others are seeing and feeling about themselves and also about the world around them. So it's very important to be self aware, as is uniquely only possible for humans. Should I continue then? Yeah.
Yeah, please, please, please.
The social mirror. If the only vision we have of ourselves comes from the social mirror, from the current social paradigm, and from the opinions, perceptions, and paradigms of the people around us, our view of ourselves is like the reflection in the crazy mirror room at the carnival.
Hmm.
You are never, you're never on time. Why can't you ever keep things in order? You must be an artist. You eat like a horse. I can't believe you won. This is so simple. Why can't you understand? These visions are disjointed and out of proportion. They are often more projections than reflections, projecting the concerns and character weaknesses of people giving the input rather than accurately reflecting what we are. The reflection of the current social paradigm tells us we are largely determined by conditioning and conditions. While we have acknowledged the tremendous power of conditioning in our lives, to say that we are determined by it, that we have no control over that influence, creates quite a different map. There are actually three social maps, three theories of determinism widely accepted independently or in combination to explain the nature of man. Genetic determinism basically says your grandparents did it to you. That's why you have such a temper. Your grandparents had short tempers, and it is in your DNA. It just goes through the generations and you inherited it. In addition, you're Irish, and that's the nature of Irish people. Psychic determinism basically says your parents did it to you. Your upbringing, your childhood experience essentially laid out your personal tendencies and your character structure. That's why you're afraid to be in front of a group. It's the way your parents brought you up. You feel terribly guilty if you make a mistake because you remember deep inside the emotional scripting when you were very vulnerable and tender and dependent. You remember the emotional punishment, the rejection, the comparison with somebody else when you didn't perform as well as expected. Environmental determinism basically says your boss is doing to you, or maybe your spouse, or that bratty teenager, or your economic situation, or national policies. Someone or something in your environment is responsible for your situation. Each of these maps is based on the stimulus or response theory we most often think of in connection with Pavlov's experiments with dogs. The basic idea is that we are conditioned to respond in a particular way to a particular stimulus. How accurately and functionally do these deterministic maps describe the territory? How clearly do these mirrors reflect the true nature of man? Do they become self fulfilling prophecies? Are they based on principles we can validate within ourselves? So this section, I'll just stop here and briefly before we move on to the next topic. So this section talks about what a social mirror is. Social mirror is basically we start to think about ourselves the way others think and talk about us. If people constantly keep telling me that you are a very tardy person, you are never on time, I will always feel anxious about this. Oh, I'm never going to be on time. So that is not me trying to be punctual. That is not me trying to be me, but it is a reflection of how others see me, right? And there are different, basically, every human being reacts in a certain way because of the conditions and conditioning around them. And there are three ways, three main categories which determine this behavior, which condition a person's nature and character. The first one is what is attributed to be genetic determinism. It's because you are coming from a certain family, you have a certain DNA, maybe you have a certain nationality, because of which you have certain characteristic traits. This may be true or not true, but that is how it is, that is what it is attributed to. The second is psychic determinism. which is basically you are behaving in a certain way right now because that is how you were raised as a child. So, as a child, if you were always scolded for dropping something, for example, so as an adult, you may still be nervous about handling delicate objects. So, that conditioning, that response to handling delicate objects is not because you can't do it right now, but that's what your mental map is like. That's the social mirror. That's others' opinions and how you have been um, how you've been conditioned since childhood. And then there's the third kind of category, which is the environmental determinism, which basically says that your current situation is a result of people around you right now. It could be national policies, like something happening with the government which prevents you from, or which makes you react in a certain way. It could be your boss, it could be your spouse. So it's right now what is happening around you and the people around you that determine your behavior. And this paragraph ends with saying that at the end of the day, do these become self-fulfilling prophecies? And going back to the same thing that which I talked in the beginning, is that when people start calling you as, as a person who is always late, do we then start accepting it that yes, I'm always late, I can never be punctual, so why try? So do these social reflections on how other people perceive you, does that start becoming your own reality? In essence, everything we do is basically a response to a certain stimulus. It's a response to how people around us, whether were our grandparents or parents or current people, current conditions around us, um, behave or exist. So, with that, we will go into the next topic, which is between stimulus and response. So, what is a human's response to a particular stimulus? Any questions? Would you All right, then I'll
No.
continue. Hi, Chandra. Thank you for joining. We are at page 36, between stimulus and response. Now, in answer to those questions, let me share with you the catalytic story of Viktor Frankl. Frankl was a determinist raised in the tradition of Freudian psychology, which postulates that whatever happens to you as a child shapes your character and personality and basically governs your whole life. The limits and parameters of your life are set, and basically, you can't do much about it. Frankl was also a psychiatrist and a Jew. He was imprisoned in the death camps of Nazi Germany, where he experienced things that were so repugnant to our sense of decency that we shudder to even repeat them. His parents, that is, Frankel's parents, his brother,
I
and
can't
his
hear you.
wife.
I'm in that book reading.
Okay.
Huh?
Kanti, your mic is not muted. His parents, his brother, and his wife died in the camps or were sent to the gas ovens. Except for his sister, his entire family perished. Frankel himself suffered torture and innumerable indignities, never knowing from one moment to the next if his path would lead to the ovens or if he would be among the saved who would remove the bodies or shovel out the ashes of those so fated. One day, naked and alone in a small room, he began to become aware of what he later called the last of the human freedoms, the freedom his Nazi captors could not take away. They could control his entire environment. They could do what they wanted to his body. But Viktor Frankl himself was a self aware being who could look as an observer at his very involvement. His basic identity was intact. He could decide within himself how all of this was going to affect him. Between what happened to him or the stimulus and his response to it was his freedom or power to choose that response. I think this part is very critical. So I'll just stop here. So Frankel, basically, he was a Jew who was imprisoned in the Nazi camps. I'm I hope most of you are aware of Nazi Germany and what they did to the Jews back in 1940s and what resulted in the Second World War. So, in this Nazi camp, all of Frankel's family except his sister perished. And when he was at the lowest of his life, right, like sitting naked, tortured in a dark room, that's when he became self aware, right? And that's when he realized that irrespective of what my environment is, irrespective of
Kanchan,
what,
just a second, please. I'm not even
sure.
sure these are very young guys. I don't even know
Oh,
they have any idea of the concentration camps. Just give a short
okay,
background about that. Yeah.
all right. I will try to.
No, no,
Uh,
keep it short. I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah, because it'll get into a very gory story, but let's
Yes.
see. So
Yeah.
so basically, this is the Nazi Germany is relates to. We have had two world wars so far in the 20th century, in modern world history. The first one was 1914 to 1918, which was the First World War. Now, this First World War was mainly fighting between different European countries for power, like who is the most powerful, which, and this was the time when countries were still ruled by kings and they were dynasties. So somebody killed one important king, and then there was a lot of infighting. The UK also jumped in. Somehow that World War ended in 1919. Now, at this time, there was a man called Hitler who was gaining a lot of power in Germany at that time. And now Hitler was a very influential guy. He was a common soldier, but soon he rose to become a very important politician in Germany. And what Hitler wanted was absolute power over the world. He was just a twisted guy, right? He just wanted absolute power over the world, and he mobilized most of Germany, which was predominantly a Christian society, to say that Judaism is a separate religion, right? And Jews in general have always been very learned people. They have always invested in education. They have always, been good with money. So generally, they were very affluent, right? So in order to gain power in Germany, what this guy Hitler did was he brainwashed almost the entire country and also neighboring countries to say Jews are the cause of our problems. They are taking all our money. They are taking everything from us. So we should exterminate them. We should like simply kill off all the Jews. So what this started was a big genocide in which millions and millions of people, not only from Germany, but from Germany, Austria, Poland, and all neighboring countries, wherever Jews lived, they were very, very brutally treated. Many of them succeeded in escaping to the United States of America. Many of them could not. There were a lot of atrocities done against the Jews, Nazis. So this Germany was called Nazi Germany. And trust me, the Germany now is very ashamed of what they did. And the Germany country as we know now, those people are not like this. They have all understood the mistakes of their ancestors. But unfortunately, this happened in the 1940s. That and to end this man Hitler's dominance and what he was doing to a big population of the world, like an entire religion he was exterminating, all the other countries came together, like Russia, UK, United States of America, even India fought because at that time India was ruled by the British, and we fought alongside UK, or at least some of our armed forces fought alongside UK against Nazi Germany, and this is what caused what is known as the Second World War. It lasted from 1940 to 1945, but unfortunately, by this time, millions of Jews had already been killed, and in the fighting that ensued between the different armies, lots of soldiers who were not Jews were also killed, and this threw the entire world into a lot of turmoil. And it was a very bad time generally, which is why today, when anybody talks of, You must have heard in news like tensions between different countries, the possibility of a nuclear war happening. Now, world leaders are more aware of what a World War III can cause to the world, and that is why they are not so keen on starting a fight, because we have seen as a generation, or as human beings, we have seen. Just a minute. Okay. So yeah, that was about Nazi Germany and what they did to all the Jews. And as we read in this story, Frankel was a Jew who was tortured by Nazi Germany. But in when he was at the very deep end of his torture, he understood that others cannot have control over him. No matter what his environment is, no matter what the conditions around him, he controls how he responds to those conditions. He controls how he responds to that stimuli, right? That is where we had stopped. Any questions? We I hope I did not digress a lot into World War II. I just meant to like give you a little bit of a background as to what conditions Frankel was in.
No, Kanchan, if you don't give that background,
No.
they will not understand why
Mhm.
it is important. Yes, please,
Yeah,
Murari.
No,
Murari?
nothing like that. No, it's or it is like it is very interesting.
yeah. If you're interested, you should definitely like see some. If you want, like pick up some books on World War II. It's there is a lot of historical fiction books also that you can enjoy reading.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it won't make for a happy reading. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, that is for guarantee.
Yeah, it's. But anyway, let's continue. Where were we? Yeah. In the midst of his experiences, Frankel would project himself into different circumstances, such as lecturing to his students after his release from the death camps. He would describe himself in the classroom in his mind's eye and give his students the lessons he was learning during his very torture. In the midst of the most degrading circumstances imaginable, Frankel used the human endowment of self awareness to discover a fundamental principle about the nature of man. Between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Within the freedom to choose are those endowments that make us uniquely human. In addition to self awareness, we have imagination, which is the ability to create in our minds beyond our present reality. We have conscience, a deep inner awareness of right and wrong, of the principles that govern our behavior, and a sense of the degree to which our thoughts and actions are in harmony with them. And we have independent will, the ability to act based on our self awareness, free of all other influences. So, with this, I'll just quickly recap this part, right? So, Frankel became aware that no matter his conditions, however tortuous they were, however difficult they were, he could control his response to those conditions. So, that means that he became self aware. And in addition to self awareness, what also is uniquely available to only humans as a unique ability is that we have imagination. We can be creative, right? We can imagine possibilities and scenarios. And we have a conscience. Generally, majority of human beings have a good understanding of what is right and wrong. Of course, that does not mean that humans always choose to do the right thing, but at least we have that understanding, unlike animals, right? And we have a free will. Now, being self aware, having an active imagination, and having an understanding of right and wrong, we can make decisions and we can exercise those decisions as to how we should behave and how we should respond to certain conditions. That is free will. Even the most intelligent animals have none of these endowments, right? So, the four things that we talked about: self awareness, uh, imagination, conscience, and free will. Even the most intelligent of animals, which I think would be apes next to us, apes and chimpanzees, even they don't have all of these endowments. To use a computer metaphor, they are programmed by instinct and or training. They can be trained to be responsible, but they can't take responsibility for that training. In other words, they can't direct it. They can't change the programming. They are not even aware of it. To give you an example about this, you can train a monkey to peel a banana and eat it. But can that monkey train another monkey? No. Is that monkey aware of the fact that it is being directed? No. So even the most intelligent of animals, which are mostly, different species of monkeys, do not have this free will. They do not have this understanding and this control over how they behave. Right? Any questions so far? All right, I'll continue. Please let me know. But because of our unique human endowments, we can write new programs for ourselves totally apart from our instincts and training. This is why an animal's capacity is relatively limited and man's is unlimited. But if we live like animals, out of our own instincts and conditioning and conditions, out of our collective memory, we too will be limited. The deterministic paradigm comes primarily from the study of animals: rats, monkeys, pigeons, dogs, and neurotic and psychotic people. While this may meet certain criteria of some researchers because it seems measurable and predictable, the history of mankind and our own self awareness tell us that this map doesn't describe the territory at all. Our unique human endowments lift us above the animal world. The extent to which we exercise and develop these endowments empowers us to fulfill our uniquely human potential. Between stimulus and response is our greatest power, and that is the freedom to choose. So, just a quick recap before we go on to the next section. The human endowments, which are only uniquely possible for human beings. Yeah, Chandra.
Hello.
Yes, Chandra, you have a question?
Oh, no, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. I again my miss page number. Can you tell me which page number, ma'am?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I am on page 38. It says 39 on 38. Yeah. We
And
are about to,
PDF.
yeah, on PDF page 38. Yeah.
Proactive defined.
Yeah, we are going to start now. Proactivity defined.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right.
I got it.
Just before we start that section, quick recap. What are the unique endowments that only humans have? Self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and free will. Now, what actually sets us apart from animals is how well we utilize these endowments. It's okay to have a conscience. It's okay to know what is right from wrong. But unless you actually do the right thing, then it is useless having a conscience, right? Then we are just behaving like animals if even after knowing we are doing the wrong thing, right? That is what the last paragraph says. That our ability to choose how we behave and how we react. Proactivity defined. In discovering the basic principle of the nature of man, Frankl described an accurate self map from which he began to develop the first and most basic habit of a highly effective person in any environment, and that is the habit of proactivity. While the word proactivity is now fairly common in management literature, it is a word you won't find in most dictionaries. It means more than merely taking initiative. It means that as human beings, we are responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. We can subordinate feelings to values. We have the initiative and the responsibility to make things happen. Look at the word responsibility. It breaks up as response plus ability, right? The
Oh my God, I
ability.
never thought of it that way.
Sorry? Yeah, me neither. I never look at it that way, right? In
Sorry,
Hindi, this
sorry,
is
sorry. I
called
didn't realize my mic was on.
no, no. But that's the thing, right? In Hindi, this is called Sandhi Vichhed. If you guys are
Yes, yes, yes,
aware of that,
yes.
right? But in
Yeah.
English, I never actually broke this word, right? Response and ability. And see how beautifully that comes together as the ability to choose your response.
Hmm. True.
Highly proactive people recognize that responsibility, right? They do not blame circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for their behavior. Their behavior is a product of their own conscious choice based on values rather than a product of their conditions based on feeling. So, who are proactive people? Proactive people are not just who are merely taking initiative to do something. Proactive people are those who recognize that they have a responsibility to behave not subject to their circumstances, their conditioning, or their upbringing. They have a responsibility to behave in the right manner, to make a conscious choice which is based on good values. Because we are by nature proactive, if our lives are a function of conditioning and conditions, it is because we have, by conscious decision or by default, chosen to empower those things to control us. In making such a choice, we become reactive. So see here, do you understand the meaning of proactive and reactive? It's beautifully put against each other. Being proactive means choosing your response, choosing how you behave given the conditions, given the circumstances, given your upbringing, right? Making a conscious choice to behave in a certain way. Reactive behavior, on the other hand, is giving in, like, ये तो मेरे circumstances हैं, ये ही मेरी conditioning है, so this is what my life is going to be like, right? That is a reactive response. So that is what the author is trying to tell you, that one should strive to be a proactive person, not a reactive person, always blaming circumstances, always blaming conditioning and conditions around them. Reactive people are often affected by their physical environment. If the weather is good, they will feel good. If it isn't, it affects their attitude and their performance. Proactive people can carry their own weather with them. Whether it rains or shines makes no difference to them. They are value driven. And if their value is to produce good quality work, it isn't a function of whether the weather is conducive to it or not. Reactive people are also affected by their social environment, by the social weather. When people treat them well, they feel well. When people don't, they become defensive or protective. Reactive people build their emotional lives around the behavior of others, empowering the weaknesses of other people to control them. In other words, if we go back to our previous discussion on social mirror, reactive people depend too much on the social mirror, right? They define themselves based on what others think of them, on based on how others treat them. If others are nice to them, they will feel happy. If somebody is critical of them, they will, not feel so good, or they may become defensive, or they may become, uh, even rude in return. That is because reactive people's response or their behavior is affected very much by what others around them think of them. The ability to subordinate an impulse to a value is the essence of the proactive person. Reactive people are driven by feelings, by circumstances, by conditions, and by their environment. Proactive people are driven by values, carefully thought about, selected, and internalized values. Proactive people are still influenced by external stimuli, whether physical, social, or psychological. But their response to that stimuli, conscious or unconscious, is a value based choice or response. So it's not like proactive people are not affected by their environment and circumstances, right? They are. They also face the same hardships that reactive people face in life. But the way they respond is still grounded in their value system, and it is still, whether they are doing it consciously or unconsciously, it is a very clear cut choice for them, doing the right thing. Their conscience prevails, their free will prevails. Any questions so far? Okay. As Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, I don't think it's pronounced Roosevelt. Roosevelt observed, no one can hurt you without your consent. How beautiful, right? No one can hurt you without your consent. Let's just take a moment to let that sink in. You will feel bad when somebody is mean to you or rude to you only if you let them affect you, right? Because you're letting that person get under your skin in a way. But if you don't let them affect you, if you keep on going, doing what you need to do, what is the right thing to do, how does it matter, right? So no one can hurt you without your consent. And in the words of Gandhi, they cannot take away our self respect if we do not give it to them. It is our willing permission, our consent to what happens to us that hurts us far more than what happens to us in the first place. Sorry. I admit this is very hard to accept emotionally, especially if we have had years and years of explaining our misery in the name of circumstance or someone else's behavior. But until a person can say deeply and honestly, I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, that person cannot say, I choose otherwise. So the author also says that, it is difficult to say that how can you not be upset when somebody is being mean to you, for example? How can you not think about your misery given your circumstances and conditions and just behave as, it doesn't matter? It is very difficult. It is not emotionally an easy thing to do. But one must try to do that, and one must try to honestly think that I am what I am today, not because what somebody else has done to me, or not because what somebody else has, how somebody else has treated me, but because of the choices that I have made. Right? We need to accept that because of the way I have responded to to others' behavior, because of the way I have responded to my circumstances. Once in Sacramento, when I was speaking on the subject of proactivity, by the way, Sacramento is a city in California, in the US. It's on the west coast of US. It's, I think, not very close to Los Angeles, but closer to San Francisco, if I'm right. So once in Sacramento, when I was speaking on the subject of proactivity, a woman in the audience stood up in the middle of my presentation and started talking excitedly. It was a large audience, and as a number of people turned to look at her, she suddenly became aware of what she was doing, she grew embarrassed, and sat back down. But she seemed to find it difficult to restrain herself and started talking to the people around her. She seemed so happy. I could hardly wait for a break to find out what had happened. When it finally came, I immediately went to her and asked if she would be willing to share her experience. You just can't imagine what's happened to me, she exclaimed. I am a full time nurse to the most miserable, ungrateful man you can possibly imagine. Nothing I do is good enough for him. He never expresses appreciation. He hardly even acknowledges me. He constantly harps at me and finds fault with everything I do. This man has made my life miserable, and I often take my frustration out on my family. The other nurses feel the same way. We almost pray for his demise. And for you to have the gall to stand up there and suggest that nothing can hurt me, that no one can hurt me without my consent, and that I have chosen my own emotional life of being miserable, well, there was just no way I could buy into that. But I kept thinking about it. I really went inside myself and began to ask, do I have the power to choose my response? When I finally realized that I do have that power, when I swallowed that bitter pill and realized that I had chosen to be miserable, I also realized that I could choose not to be miserable. At that moment, I stood up. It felt as though I was being let out of San Quentin. I wanted to yell to the whole world, I am free. I am let out of prison. No longer am I going to be controlled by the treatment of some person. So, so you understand what is happening here? The author was delivering a lecture at some place in Sacramento, and there was this lady in the audience who suddenly stood up very excited because almost like she had an epiphany. But just as excitedly and embarrassed, she sat back down. So when the author went up to her and asked, "What happened? Why are you so excited? What's going on?" So this lady started narrating about her own life. She's like, "I'm a nurse, and I'm a nurse to the most miserable man that you can ever imagine. He's ungrateful, he's always mean to me. And until now, I used to take that very personally. And all that frustration from my job, from being in a miserable job, I used to take that out on my family. Let's take a moment here and think ourselves, how many times have we not done that? Something going wrong in college, something going wrong in school, something going wrong in office, and we come and take that out on our family, right? Because that is how we are choosing to respond. So anyway, back to this nurse. So this nurse was telling the author that until now I was so miserable that I actually wish that this man should die. And then when I hear you saying that it is in my control how I respond, I at first I did not understand it. I thought, what nonsense. If I'm miserable, I'm miserable. If he's being mean to me, of course I will feel bad, right? But when I took a moment, I took a deep breath, and when I told myself that no, I do not need to be miserable. I do not need to even respond to this mean guy. That is when I felt liberated, right? That is when I realized that no matter how somebody else treats me, they cannot hurt me without my consent. It is how, whether I let it affect me or not, that's what matters, right? So this is just the author's way of giving us an example of how we can control our response to our environment and to people around us, and how liberating it is to be able to choose your response, to be able to not be affected by all the bad things that are going on around you. It's not easy for sure, but it's possible. Any questions so far? Next time I'll sit with a glass of water. I just realized that I'm coughing a lot. Sorry.
No. That's something we learn by doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kanchan, you can stop the reading and you can start asking them to
Okay.
speak about what they liked. And
All right, sure.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Uh, how shall we start? Like maybe if uh, anybody has a problem understanding the gist of all that we read.
Murari and
Murari has left. Kanti ma'am.
Yeah. Chandra
okay.
and Meera are
Only
here.
Chandrasekhar is there.
Okay.
Meera, who's Meera?
Meera is I mean,
Oh.
it is her this thing, but it's Sandhya who is who's the host of the meeting.
I see. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So, Chandrasekhar, what did you like about what ma'am read today? Chandrasekhar, are you there?
Now? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
we can hear you.
Chandrasekhar.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, in this chapter, I like this one, ma'am. React, actually, I try to implement always proactive, but sometimes I became reactive, ma'am.
That is human nature, right?
Yes.
Uh, and I think it takes a lot of practice and lot of self-awareness, as the author says, right? Like always maybe taking a deep breath before we even respond to a particular situation. And that's not always easy to do because we are humans at the end of the day. We are controlled by our emotions and sometimes they can get out of our hand. Uh, but I think that is what the author is saying, that eh, let's first recognize the fact that we should be proactive, right? We should be proactive people. We should not be governed by our circumstances. So if you're trying to do that, Chandra, I think that's a good start already, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And anything else that particularly stood out for you in this? I think we covered about 2 or 2.5 pages.
Essence. When speaker said she suddenly have got some thoughts she wanted to share in then public. See
Mm.
how she proactive in that time, ma'am. We listen. That thought will trigger her mind. She wanted to tell something. See how proactive in that situation are.
Right.
Some thought will trigger in our mind. We want to explain. We want to share some. We want to share someone who are no to. So how the thought will powerful when someone insists the thought.
Right. Right. You want to be able to share that thought, right? But that, in fact, I think this is my opinion, and let me know if you agree with me or not.
Yes,
When
ma'am.
she immediately stood up in the crowd, right, and she wanted to say something, right, I think that was more of a reactive behavior, right? Some
Uh-huh.
thought popped in my mind. I just want to get up and say it out. And then she suddenly became embarrassed. Then she suddenly became, oh my God. She became aware of her situation, right? Oh my God, I'm in such a large group, right? So
Okay.
don't you think that is actually her being? There's nothing wrong in it. It's not such a big deal, right? It's not a life and death kind of situation. But actually, what she did there wasn't that more of a reactive thing that some thought prompted, like she had that enlightenment that yes, I should not let this person's behavior affect me. I should not be miserable. Maybe she was very happy at that time, and then she immediately wanted to share that. So,
Uh,
would you agree that that is more of a reactive way of dealing with
yes,
things?
yes, I agree with you, ma'am. Yes, she are reactive.
Right. So a proactive person would like understand this, absorb this thought, and be okay with it, right? Again, a proactive person does not need validation from others, correct? All right. I think, yeah. Uh, Anything else, Chandra? Any particular words, or maybe you give it a read, and if there are anything that is not uh, okay words, then you can ask also later. I mean,
There's a very great book written by Viktor Frankl, Man's
hmm
Search for Meaning. It's really a very beautiful book. In my MA final, I did
hmm
research on this book. It's really like, oh, definitely the concentration camps send spines chills through your spine, but the
okay.
life lessons that you learn are
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Right.
It is really, I think so. At least once, everyone in this world should read it. It's really very
Whoa.
great.
Can you please repeat the title, Karanji? Viktor
Man's
Frankl,
search for meaning. Man's
Man's
search
Search
for
for
meaning.
Meaning.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really a very great book by Viktor Frankl. Like when you're reading it, definitely it is a very dark book
Mm-hmm.
because concentration camps were all about that. But
Right.
the life lessons that it gives is really great.
Right. Right.
And my take on this thing is that yes, the four things that he has told that human beings have, we should. Um, I'm a very reactive person, very, very reactive. But
I
slowly
think
and
Taranjan,
slowly,
all of us are. I
Yes,
was
I
just
think so
thinking the
too.
same thing.
I was thinking about this in the context of my day-to-day work life, right? Like, so, for
Exactly.
example, when I'm in
yeah,
a meeting, right? I'm talking to my boss, and if an idea comes into my mind, right? I I get so absorbed with wanting to talk about that idea that I actually stop listening to what is happening after that. And as
Same here.
some of right, and a wise man somewhere
yes,
said that listen to understand, don't listen to react.
yes.
Yes.
It
Listen
should
to
always.
respond. Don't react.
Yeah,
Mm.
listen to respond, but don't listen to react. But I often do that, right? Like I am not really using my anything conscience or
Mhm. Same thing happens with me also, 99% of the time.
Yeah. I
Really
was
very difficult.
everything Kanchan was reading is like, oh, oh, oh. That's it.
Yes, 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 yes.
and to be very honest, I also don't know whether I will be able to achieve that kind of mental state where I'm not affected when somebody is mean to me or somebody is rude to me, like that nurse, for example. Uh, will I not be miserable? I don't know. I probably will be. Like if that was my work life, every single day being subjected to meanness from a person, I don't know if I would have it in me to say, okay, I'm not going to be affected by this. I think it takes a lot of practice, and
Very
that's what I
difficult.
need to know how to practice that.
I think this
Very
book is
difficult.
all about that. We
Yeah,
read and we get to know it.
I know exactly. By the end of it, we may probably know how to be like that.
Yes. So anyway, I think the meeting will get switched off. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kanchan. Thank you,
Thank
Taranjit.
you
Thank you,
so much,
Thanks a
Priya.
Chandrasekhar.
lot. I thank you,
Very
Chandrasekhar.
so
Thank
nice,
you for
so
joining,
nicely
all of
done.
you.
Thank you,
Mm.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, take
Bye.
care.
Good night.
Good
Bye
night.
Bye.
bye.